Hello, dear student. Today, I would like to deliver my speech on William Shakespeare's King Lear, presented by Professor Dr. Muhammad Aminul Haque. I would like to give you this lecture preliminaries. King Lear is one of the greatest tragedies of William Shakespeare. In this play, Shakespeare has also used 5 terms of the play, that is, exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, denouement, or catastrophe. These are the 5 points of a tragedy followed by Shakespeare. Shakespeare is a skilled dramatist. He has used this term in this play, King Lear, very clearly. Lear is the king of Britain. Due to his old age, he decided to divide his kingdom among his 3 daughters, namely Guinevere, Regan, and Cordelia. Lear is eccentric to the point of madness, so he takes this sudden decision to divide his kingdom among his daughters. For this sudden decision, he suffers a lot at his old age and finally dies. This is the brief description of the main plot. In King Lear, there is a subplot, and the subplot is the parallel of the main plot. In the subplot, it is stated that Gloucester, the Earl, is convinced by his illegitimate son Edmund that Edgar, the legitimate son of Gloucester, is planning to deprive his father Gloucester of his property and plans to kill him. Gloucester is not a man of real justice and does not undergo any proof. He blindly believes Edmund and dishes out his legal son Edgar from his palace. Later, Gloucester suffers enormously due to his fault and dies critically. So the preliminaries of the drama are very important, and the plot of the plot of the play has been stated clearly, and the audience or the students would be able to be benefited by the preliminary speech on this play. Now, I would like to give an idea of the exposition of the play. That is, this is the first point of a tragedy usually used by William Shakespeare in his plays. In King Lear, it is not different. In the initial stage of the play, Lear, that is King Lear, is surrounded by his faithful courtiers. in the stateroom of his palace. He has called a court for being old and decided to retire from the cares of the state, and also decided to divide his kingdom among his three daughters, namely Goneril, Regan, and Cordelia. So, this is the decision taken by King Lear whimsically. He does not think of his future. He does not think of his later life, how it will happen to his fate. And so, a tragic hero especially commits some faults, and due to the faults of his activities, he suffers a lot at the end of the play or at the end of his life. Here, Lear is not different or exception to this. So, as I told, that Lear decided to divide his kingdom among the three daughters, namely Goneril, Regan, and Cordelia. He wants to receive their cares and laugh at his old age. Goneril is the eldest daughter, and she is married to the Duke of Albany. That is the second daughter is Regan, and she is married to the Duke of Cornwall, a cruel tyrant. And Cordelia, the youngest one, has two rival suitors. The first one, the Duke of Burgundy, and the King of the France is the second one, for her hand in marriage. In the court, King Lear summons his three daughters, the Duke of Albany and Cornwall, and the Earl of Kent, a young nobleman, and the Earl of Gloucester. Gloucester had two sons, namely Edgar, a young man of nobility and high character, and the second son, Edmund, illegitimate, a man of cunning and unscrupulous nature. Edmund has been banished from the kingdom on account of his disgrace of birth and nature. So, in the exposition, it becomes clear to us that the king, that is Lear, has suddenly taken decision to divide his kingdoms among the three daughters, and this decision was taken suddenly, eccentrically. He does not think of his old age. He does not think of his last life or next life. But there is another point. He wants to escape from the cares of the state, and it is a dutiful activity, and it should be taken by King Lear, especially at this mature stage of life. So, on the other hand, there is another that is a subplot. In this subplot, we find Gloucester, and Gloucester is convinced by Edmund, the illegitimate son, that Edgar, the legitimate son of Gloucester, that is Edmund, says that Edgar is planning to kill Gloucester. Edgar is planning to deprive his father Gloucester of his property. So that is Gloucester blindly believes Edmund, and he also drives his illegitimate son Edgar from his palace. So now I would like to come to the rising action, and it is the second point of the drama. The action of the play rises toward the incident, that is the development of it. Lear calls upon his daughter to express in words how much they love him. Primarily, or for the first time, Goneril is asked first how much she loves his father. She replies that she loves his father more than words, and Lear gives her and her husband Albany one part of his kingdom. Lear now asks Regan how much she loves him. She tries to surpass Goneril in flattery, and the king bestows on her and her husband another third part of the kingdom. Now Lear asks Cordelia, his most affectionate daughter, how much she loves him. She is disgusted with her sister's flattery and does not like to flatter his own father. King Lear, she replies, "Nothing, my lord, nothing." Cries Lear, "Nothing?" Repeats Cordelia. Lear says, "Nothing will come to nothing." Here, Lear disinherits his youngest daughter Cordelia from her share and divides it between the two elder daughters, Goneril and Regan. Kent, the royal courtier, persuades Lear to reconsider Cordelia, but the king remains in his madness and does not listen to him. Rather, he dismisses him from his palace. He bids farewell to the king. King Lear expels Cordelia from his palace and asks her to the suitor who like to accept Cordelia without inheritance of the kingdom. The Duke of Burgundy declines to accept her, but the King of France accepts her cordially as his bride in this critical situation. So Cordelia goes to France, accompanying her husband, the King of France. So the rising action is very important for the students, and in this rising action many incidents happen very suddenly, and it is important to go our next point. Lear's difficulties. Lear faces a lot of difficulties losing his kingdom. Lear spent scarcely a month with his eldest daughter Goneril, losing his kingdom at the hands of his two daughters. Goneril seeks opportunity to quarrel with her father and instruct her steward Oswald to be disrespectful to the old king. So it is a mischievous plan by the king's daughter Goneril. How it is possible for a daughter to be very rustic, to be very injustice toward her father. So here happens this kind of things in King Lear. Even Goneril asks his steward Oswald to be disrespectful to the old king, that is Lear. So, in the meantime, Kent follows Cordelia into France, but in order to be near Lear, when the French army reaches England, he returns disguising himself as a servant to Albany's castle. So that is Kent is a very royal courtier to King Lear. Lear is haunted by his daughter's behavior and rudeness. He calls for dinner and asks Oswald to speak with Goneril. Oswald answers rudely, and the king strikes him in temper, and Kent also strips Oswald, feeling sympathy toward the old king. This pleases Lear, and he appoints him as his retinue by the name of Chaos. So, in this stage, we are acquainted with Chaos, but Chaos is the name of that is Kent. Chaos is the adopted name given by the king given by the king. So Chaos is really Kent. The fool enters and indulges in bitter sarcasm on Lear's folly. The fool plays a role of that is reminding follies committed by the king. So the fool has his that is freedom to express the actual things in front even of the king or of any royal personality. Goneril now appears and talks to his father bitterly and asks him to dismiss half of his knights. Lear denounces his daughter and determines to leave her palace and goes to Regan. That is here, Lear thinks that if he goes to Regan, Regan would accept him cordially to her palace. But it is irony of fate. Whatever Lear thinks is reversed, or whatever Lear thinks is totally wrong. And so it is the irony of fate that is we find. But Regan is early informed by his sister Goneril, who sends Oswald that their father misbehaves with her and asks her, that's Regan, not to give shelter. So it is clear to us that Regan advises it is clear to us that Goneril advises Regan not to accept their father to his house. So Regan and her husband Cornwall leave the palace for Gloucester Palace. Later, Lear goes there, but it is closed and is summoned by Regan to Gloucester Palace. But Regan misbehaves with her father there and praises her sister Goneril and asks the king to return to her again. But Lear is determined not to return to Goneril. In the meantime, the storm approaches toward the place. The king, along with chaos, and the fool is left in the storm. Here, the cruel activity done by Goneril and later on done by Regan is very clear to us. And here we find that Regan misbehaves with his father. Even Regan's husband, Cornwall, misbehaves with the old king. As a result, Regan also again advises his father to return to his elder sister Goneril. But the king has his personality. He does not like to return to a person who also misbehave with him and who also drives him of his palace. So the king is determined to stay in his decision, and the king is also adamant in his decision to remain in his position. So here we find that is the two sister also drags their father King Lear to a position of a stormy situation. In the meantime, the storm begins, and the king, along with the chaos and the fool, is left in the storm, in the acute storm. So it is a critical situation of the play. So the subplot of the play, in King Lear there is a subplot. In this subplot, Edmund, the illegitimate son of Gloucester, plots against his brother Edgar, the legitimate son of Gloucester. Gloucester, as Edmund is deprived of Gloucester property for his illegitimate birth and nature. So Edmund intrigues with Goneril and Regan against Edgar. Edmund is very handsome, so that both Goneril and Regan want to capture him as their suitor despite their alive husbands. Regan loses her husband Cornwall when Cornwall fights with a servant who wanted to safeguard the old king. So Regan's claim is greater than Goneril to occupy Edmund. Edmund alleges to his father that Edgar is plotting to kill the Earl Gloucester. Blindly the earl believes it and expelled Edgar, the true son, from the palace. Goneril and Regan help Edmund to make this intrigue against Edgar. Edgar is hiding himself in different places to save himself from Edmund's attack. On the other hand, Gloucester is helpless and also expelled by Edmund as he is an ally of the king. So in the subplot it is very clear to us that Edgar is deprived of his rights by the intrigue of Edmund, and finally Gloucester believes Edmund blindly. As a result, Gloucester suffers at the end of the play, and the subplot is the parallel to the main plot. Now, climax of the play. The climax of the play is very important in King Lear. The king is now in a critical situation. The storm blows rudely and the king is deprived of his cares by his two daughters. He is now in the storm accompanied by chaos and the pool. The king's madness grows enormously and he suffers inwardly. The king could not control himself due to the suffering happened in his brain. So the storm blows in his inward heart as if it strike heavily. As a result, he will die later. In the meantime, a young man, Edgar, comes to his help and takes him in a hovel in a critical situation. Listening to this situation, the French king spent his army to rescue Lear at Dover. Cordelia, along with her husband, King of France, proceed to Dover, but French king returns to France due to his official purpose. Cordelia finds her father in Dover and takes care of him in this situation. Gloucester is arrested due to his cause of treason, and Cornwall erupts his two eyes forcefully. Then one of the servants kills Cornwall as he could not tolerate it. As a blind man, Gloucester now could see his fault and he could not see his faults when he has eyes. Gloucester is left and he meets the king by the help of a servant in Dover. So the climax is very difficult and the climax is the turning point. The climax is the extreme point of the play, and it is very critical for the king as well as Gloucester the Earl. So the king suffers inwardly and outwardly. He suffers physically and mentally. On the other hand, Gloucester suffers physically. He loses his eye, and also Gloucester suffers inwardly, that is mentally. So it is the extreme point extreme point of this play that is very important for us. Now, I would like to discuss another point, falling action. In this falling action of the play, the king and Cordelia are taken as captives in the prison by Edmund Goneril Regan and other allied courtiers. The British army takes control of Dover and the French army returns to France. Goneril and Regan wish to marry Edmund as husband despite Goneril's alive husband Albany. Regan wishes to marry him, causing that her husband Cornwallis. As I have discussed the falling action of the play, now I would like to discuss denouement or catastrophe. In a tragedy, it is very important. The most of the prominent personalities die or meet the doom critically at the end of the play. Here is no exception to this. It is the critical period of the play. Edmund secretly orders to murder Cordelia in the prison, and Cordelia is killed there, though Albany objects toward this decision. So Cordelia is murdered critically by the order of Edmund in the prison. Albany disputes Edmund's right to issue orders, and Regan declares it is by her authority. And this leads to a dispute between the two sisters, that's Goneril and Regan. And there was a chaotic condition between these two sisters. Edmund is arrested by Albany on the charge of capital treason. That is, Edmund is not a person of the royal family. How it is possible for Edmund to issue the order of murdering Cordelia? So it is illegal. Due to this cause, Albany arrested Edmund due to the cause of treason. It is wanted that Goneril has plotted to murder Regan in order to marry Edmund when Albany has been removed. In the meantime, Goneril hears that Edmund is killed. Then Goneril has poisoned her sister Regan to death, thinking that she, means Regan, will marry Edmund and commit suicide. So, Goneril plays a very decisive role in order to kill Regan, and finally she commits suicide. She kills Regan by poisoning, and that is out of his rays, out of his grace, and Regan and dies by poisoning. The Goneril's poisoning. That is, on the other hand, Goneril commits suicide. Edgar, disguising himself as a knight, enters and charges Edmund for being a traitor. Edgar is a true son of Gloucester, but Edmund was an illegitimate son of Gloucester. Edgar misbehaves and Edgar commits a very stately crime against his brother Edgar. So our Edgar also charges Edmund for being a traitor. In a fight, Edgar defeats Edmund and Edmund admits his fault before he dies, and finally he dies as a criminal. My student, you can say that how a criminal faces his doom, his death critically, and Edmund is the great example of it. Cordelia has been hanged by the order of Edmund previously, and the old king, rising out of his desperation, kills the executioner in rage. Bending over the body of Cordelia, Lear utters a despairing cry, "Thou wilt come no more." Then Lear falls lifeless across her dead body and dies. Gloucester has passed away of a broken heart, learning that Edgar's treachery was a fabrication of Edmund. Turning to Edgar and Kent, Albany begs them to help him in administering the kingdom, but Kent shakes his head and answers, "I have a journey, sir, shortly to go. My master's calls me. I must not say no." So, in the denouement or in the catastrophe, most of the major characters die and faces doom. And so this is the tragedy of King Lear delivered by me. There are some probable cautions. What are the main themes in King Lear by William Shakespeare? Discuss. Number 2, character is destiny. How far is this applicable to King Lear? Do you think that with all his faults, Lear is every inch a king? Number 4, what is the dramatic significance of the subplot in King Lear? Discuss. Number 5, what is the relationship between the main plot and the subplot in King Lear? Elucidate. Number 6, what is the relationship between madness and blindness in King Lear? Discuss. Number 7, what is the climax in Shakespeare's play King Lear? Explain in detail. And finally, number 8, do you agree that Lear is actually redeemed at the end of the play? Discuss. Okay, thank you.